Alright, what's going on, guys? There's been a really important discussion going on around the Elden Ring discourse that is something we've seen before with Dark Souls, however has propagated beyond anything we've ever experienced in the Souls community. Because in the past the Souls genre has been more of a niche audience than what we're seeing with Elden Ring. Because unlike in the past, Elden Ring has become the most popular game of the year and has reached a lot more people that have never played a From Software game before. And a consequence of that is that many of these new people are now having a say in the conversations where we talk about these games. And these are people that are not experienced with the culture or generally how these games work. And what we're seeing now is a pretty big movement against gatekeeping in the Souls community. Now, if you're somebody that's been around for a long time, then you probably know how this works, but for those of you that don't, let me go ahead and define it for you. Gatekeeping in the literal sense means the activity of controlling and usually limiting general access to something. But what that typically looks like in terms in relation to these games is telling people they didn't actually play the game if they played a certain way, or telling them that they can't have an opinion on it if they haven't played the other games before. Of course, this happens in different ways as well, but those tend to be the most common. Now, before I expand on this, let me go ahead and preface this video with a few points. Number one, the goal of talking about this is to generate a discussion. That includes looking at both sides of the argument, which I heavily encourage you to do before you leave a comment. Number two, I'd also encourage you to watch the full video, because I will be giving my opinion on it, but you probably won't see the full picture of that until you finish the video. But with those out of the way, let's start with the first point. One of my favorite things about Elden Ring is that I've been seeing a lot of my favorite streamers who never play Souls games give the genre a try and finally get to experience something I'm so passionate about. But I kid you not, every single one that I've watched have been getting constantly harassed by quote-unquote Souls fans who are mad that they're not playing the game the way they think they should. And this is by far the most common and most toxic form of gatekeeping in the Souls community. And it's really sad, because it seems to be more common now than ever. You know, we've had the running gag in the Souls community for a long time that, oh, the game does have an easy mode, it's called summoning, or it's called magic. And most of the time that was pretty benign because we were all used to it. We all knew how that worked and we knew how the community functioned. And to an extent that was kind of warranted, because generally in the Souls games they really weren't made to accommodate for that. If you summoned for a boss in Dark Souls, it was almost laughably easy, because the AI really didn't know what to do against two separate targets. And just like with different targets, a lot of them didn't know what to do if you were fighting at range. However, Elden Ring is different. The intended experience of this game is to use all the tools at your arsenal. The AI adapts if there's more than one target. They act differently if you're fighting them at range. And in general, the bosses in this game are a lot harder than in the past. So it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to shun people for playing the game differently, since no matter what they do, they are still going to get that intended experience. I do understand the point that the first playthrough of a Souls game is sacred, and that a lot of people that leave these comments and talk like this are just trying to ensure that the people they see playing get the most out of it just like they did their first time. But what you gotta realize is that this does nothing but make them not want to play the game. Nobody likes to be harassed when they're simply doing what they naturally progress towards. And if that takes them down the route of summoning or magic, they're probably still gonna enjoy the game just as much. And I want to look at this tweet by Zully the Witch, because I think it puts it in a pretty good perspective. Something that's come up a lot lately is the Git Gud attitude of some From Software fans. An interesting thing to note is Git Gud had a much less derisive origin than you may think. It initially began as a way of stressing the direct nature of their skill testing ideology. Over time, this has been twisted into dismissive mockery. There's no such thing as a legitimate criticism, you're just bad at the game. It's a shame that this is what many people know the fanbase for, because it was originally more about self-improvement. And that's what it's turned into more than anything lately. As a result, making the fanbase look more like hostile gatekeepers than people that want others to experience what they love. Instead of advertising our favorite rite of passage in Dark Souls and Elden Ring, it seems to have been doing the opposite, driving more people away, or causing them to quit right after beginning. But there is a flip side, a time when I can argue that gatekeeping is a bit warranted. And it's that second type that I brought up. Gatekeeping people from having an opinion that haven't played the other games before or are generally inexperienced. Because this is the biggest problem I've seen going around with Elden Ring. It seems like every day I check social media now, there's some new big objective problem with the game that From Software needs to change or the game is gonna die. And I'm sure you've seen them too. But 99% of the time it just boils down to the person not understanding how the games work. For example, I'll give you the one I found earlier. This person went on to Twitter to rant about how the NPC quest structure in Elden Ring is bad and that the obscurity has officially stopped being cute. Now his main complaint was that because he wasn't checking a wiki, he's now rendered several side quests incompletable. And this had me really confused, because there's only 1 or 2 side quests that can even be hindered throughout the game. The majority can still be completed even after beating the game. But that's not the point I want to talk about, right? A lot of y'all probably saw my back and forth with Shadversity, where he claimed that the game's storytelling was objectively flawed. Now, that's over and done, but the core of the argument was built on a misunderstanding. And this is where gatekeeping can kinda come into play. With Elden Ring and all the people playing the game for the first time that don't fully understand how these work, when they try to rile others up and call for a big change in the game, I do think it's important to step in and stop that. When they try to start a movement about something they're not totally sure on, that is not a good thing. And to an extent, I think gatekeeping is probably necessary there, because there's a reason we love these games. It's because they go against the norm. But the problem is people that are accustomed to the norm go into this with that expectation. But that's where we can come in. When people start throwing around these opinions, a healthy alternative to simply blocking them out would be to educate them on how these things work and the misconceptions that they're approaching it with. Because at the end of the day, more people playing these games are a good thing. Elden Ring's success and penetration in the mainstream market is a good thing. It ultimately means that the next game is going to be even better because the budget's going to be higher and the sales expectations are also going to be higher. But in order to hold on to that success and ensure that more people enjoy it without losing the core values that we love about the game franchise, we have to educate these new players on how the game works and get them to know what to expect in a welcoming way. Because this constant war that's going on between the gatekeepers and the new players does nothing positive. But that's just my opinion on it. And believe me, I do understand. I see the problems that can happen when these games go mainstream. Each of the new changes that make the game a little bit more accessible can lead to a slippery slope. So while I do see the need for a little bit of gatekeeping, I think the way people are going about it right now isn't very helpful. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments your thoughts on this. Is a bit of gatekeeping necessary to keep the values that we love intact? Or do you think all it's doing is driving people away from the franchise? Either way though, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like on it and subscribe if you're new around here. And check out my latest video, which was a mini documentary about all the lore surrounding Godric. I'm sure you're gonna love that one. But with all that out of the way, I'll catch you in the next one.